Hello, welcome back to the Night. In this chapter, we're going to look at 6 queen moves. Queen moves on move 6. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd9, d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. And here, there are some queen moves, actually. Obviously, these are not very common because everybody is taught to first develop the light pieces, then castle, only then think about the queen. But there are, of course, hyper-modern players. And there is a point to various queen moves, mainly queen e2, queen f3, and queen d3. And this is what this chapter is going to be about. So let's jump straight into it and start first with the move queen e2. It's a clever looking move, but I didn't quite get the point here after e5. Knight f5 is supposed to be obviously the point. I mean, if white plays knight to b3 or to f3, then the queen is just misplaced. So knight f5 is supposed to be the point. We push here with d5, and after bishop g5, which is the only sensible option. Of course, d5 is justified with the fact that the knight is now under pressure. Bishop g5 is the sensible move. Now after d4, long castle is the option, so it looks very clever, I have to say. I mean, if I would have seen this for the first time without any prejudice and without having access to the chess engines, I would think that this is a very interesting idea. Let's see long castle and f4 coming and all that. And maybe that is why this move queen e2 has been played a few times, even on a relatively high level. But having analyzed this, it seems that this setup is just very risky for white and not very good. But we still have to know it, because, like I said, it looks quite interesting for white from the visual point of view. I mean, this knight is active, the bishop is active, the knight is coming. We are not yet too developed. Our pawns are feel a little bit, well, they're great, but they feel a little bit, overextended without having developed the pieces yet. But it all works out, don't worry. It's very good for black. Here there are two moves. Besides long castle, there is also bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f6. Now there are two options. Gf is, I believe, objectively stronger. You can also take with the queen, trying to keep the pawn structure very neat. And d5, queen c6. Now we always want to kick back the knight. As soon as we do so, we'll be doing very well. White has the d5 square, but we have domination on the dark squares, and the knight alone can do us no damage. Here it's important to know that after queen c4, white threatens actually knight c7, and black has only one good defense, and it's a very strong move, rook a7. The idea is just to get out of the fork with knight c7, and next we want to push g6 and kick the knight away and have a very comfortable position. G takes f6 is more ambitious and even stronger. Long castle, now bishop e6. We want to play knight d7, unpin along the d file and just finish development, bring the rook over to c8 and so on. Queen h5 is white's best follow-up. The queen was in the way here of the bishop. Queen h5 is the best follow-up. And here, well, logical would be knight d7, then white can play knight d5, and it's still fine for black, of course, but stronger is the move rook g8, and that's a very cool idea. The point is that after knight d5, we play rook to g5, and we want to take rook to f5 and win two knights for the rook. So white has to address the threat of rook g5. He plays here, should play here h4. f4, we also play knight d7, so h4, knight d7. Now knight d5, and here knight c5, hitting the weak e4 pawn. White can play bishop c4, sacrifice the pawn, but here we don't even have to take it yet. We keep up the pressure with rook c8, and e4 is still hanging, g2 is also still hanging, and we are intending b5, a5, targeting this bishop, and white's light square control is very fragile. His main issue is going to be his king on the queen side. I had to check this position with the computers. Black is much better here. So if you want to investigate further, you can. But I believe it's good enough to stop here. Next, we want to play b5, a5. This for bishop takes f6. I believe long castle looks more tempting, but this is even more dangerous for white. I play knight c6. We intend to play queen a5 actually, which is a huge threat. The knight will be hanging, and so will be the pawn. Now f4, very tempting, and it looks very unclear. But actually, after queen a5, f e5, d takes c3, e takes f6. Now a very strong move, bishop e6, actually threatening cb, because cb now cb1 would be a defense, but after bishop e6 cb threatens mate, so black can afford this this strong move. There is nothing happening on g7, cb mate goes first, and yeah, here black is just winning simply, and this happened in Anakin Sherwood correspondent game 2014. I'm curious why white went for this. I mean, especially in 2014, there were computers, but yeah, maybe he tried to be creative, and but it doesn't work. At 10 queen f3 is objectively better, but now after queen a5, black is doing very well. Bishop f6, d takes c3, and the complications are in black's favor. The best for white is to take bishop g7. I will take queen a2. B takes c3 is the best move. Bishop takes f5. White has to take the bishop. Bishop h8, just bishop h6 would be made. Bishop h6 and then queen a1, sorry, would be made. Bishop takes f8 is better now. Bishop e6, and the difference in the king safety is very, very substantial. After bishop c5, we can play rook g8, get the extra tempo on bishop g4, so h3, and now rook g6 is very strong, guarding the f6 square just in case, and 6th rank in general. And next we want to play rook c8 and then knight a5, and after knight a5 it will be quite relevant that we had prevented queen f6 move. So here the game continues, but black has a tremendous advantage, and that's mostly just thanks to king's safety and the king on e8. There are no attackers around it, whereas for king on c1, after rook c8, knight a5 comes, it's almost checkmate. So queen e2 is just not working. In fact, knight b3 probably is better, but then the question, of course, is why queen e2, so not a very good move. But good to know these ideas, just especially if you get surprised. Could look a bit scary, but it's not. The other two moves are queen f3 and queen d3, so let's look at queen f3. Queen f3 is fantastic for against e5. Now after knight f5, of course, the queen is just ideally placed here. So e5 is something we don't do. Also, e6 is not great because white gets g4, also very sensible, following up with g5. But the queen actually stands very badly on f3 against the dragon setup. Now, the problem for white is that his most dangerous setup against the dragon is bishop e3, f3, queen d2, and eventually bishop h6 is the point later on. But here, that is not possible. The queen on f3 is 2 moves away from d2 square, and another issue is that long castle is not possible because of bishop g4, so white has to waste an extra move on h3. So against queen f3, g6 is just a dream dragon. White should probably objectively try to go for some short castle plans, but then the queen on f3 is very awkward, and yeah, it's just very harmless for black. We just play the regular dragon, bishop g7 castle, and develop our pieces on the queen side. But mostly white tries to play principle, goes h3, bishop g7, bishop e3, short castle and low castle, but this is just not good. We play knight c6. Important not to fear knight c6 bc e5 because of knight d5, when yeah, the open files and these diagonals are just huge for black. Sorry, one diagonal was drawn a little bit, yeah, like this. Yeah, just very good for black. So knight c6 is nothing to be afraid of. White plays g4, then we go bishop d7, and we intend rook c8, knight e5, and second c3. Queen on f3 once again horrible. In this structure, white tries usually queen g2. Now he wants to meet rook c8 with f4, stopping knight e5, but here we switch for the b5 plan. Now b4 is very strong. f4, b4, knight d5, and here a5, improving on the correspondent game between Goncharenko and Kazakhs in 2012. a5 is just a strong improvement. No need to trade on d5 and d4 yet. Now we just want to push a4, b3. White has achieved nothing so far on the king side, and our queen side play is much faster. I believe also very dubious for white, this whole thing, queen f3. Queen d3 finally, objectively probably the better of the 3 moves. It's been played a couple of times recently by Fabiano Caruana, but it's not that dangerous. We, however, however, should, I believe, not go for e5 because of knight f5. And instead, we have to choose from some other move. I recommend knight bd7. But if you play it simple with e6, that's also all right. Now this is the Scheveningen setup with the queen on d3. Here white has to play bishop e2, he will then castle and maybe bring the queen over to g3. So it's not completely without a point, but it's yeah, it's fine position for black. But I propose even more principled move, knight bd7. The idea is that now after bishop e2, I recommend very ambitious move b5, because usually white tries to stop it with a4 at some point. And the point here is that if white goes c7, a4, now e6 would be what white is hoping for, this bishop e2 set up with queen g3. But here after a4, now that white had taken away the option of castling long, now I recommend to go for the dragon setup with g6. Here the play continues with bishop e2, bishop g7, castle, and yeah, it's a little bit of a strange dragon. Again, all the dragons where white castle short are okay for black, but here, especially with queen on d3, it looks pretty good. I like the move b6, a clever idea, more flexible than castle, because now the point is that after b6, if knight c6, we have queen c7, and the e7 pawn is still protected. This, by the way, is an idea I'd seen in some other positions as well, so something to be aware of. Knight c6 nonetheless is the most critical. Queen c7, knight b4, rerouting to d5. Bishop b7, knight d5. But now we take on d5, knight d5, queen d8. And yeah, white shouldn't be worse yet. He of course has also some space here. But in terms of a Sicilian, yeah, we have a very good Sicilian, very strong bishops, and next one to castle. And position is roughly balanced. Yes, so in a way, queen d3 is the safer of the three, but also not very dangerous. After knight bd7, if white plays bishop e2. By the way, I think after e6, besides bishop e2, white can also start with a4. So in that sense, knight bd7 is a much more flexible move, because after a4 now we go g6, and after bishop e2, as you'll see now, we go b5. A very concrete idea. Here it feels a bit premature. You would think that a4 is the problem. We'll look at that in a second. If white goes castle first, we play bishop b7. Next, we want to develop e6 bishop b7, or even g6 bishop b7. We are very happy to have got this b5 push in. Knight d5 first is also possible, but after bishop b7, knight f6, knight f6, f3, position is roughly equal. We can play g6 or e6, but I like e5, the most direct move. Knight f5 here, d5 is possible, but we can also play g6, knight e3, and now bishop e7, and only after white castle do we push d5, and after e5, knight d5, the trades lead to a comfortable position for black, knight d5, queen d5. But of course, the main question is a4 after b5. That's really the way to go. Now, before knight d5 would be rather problematic, but I recommend a very strong intermediate move, knight c5. Now the point is, if white moves the queen to e3, it's the most logical square. We go b4, knight d5, and we can take the e4 pawn with knight c takes e4. And here we're doing quite well. If white regains the pawn on b4, then we have, of course, a central pawn that we traded for a queenside pawn. So we're happy here. We play bishop b7, f3. Castling is bad because we just follow up with e5, d5, hitting both the knights with tempi. So f3 is clever, knight c5 castle. Now e5 at least doesn't threaten the knight on d4. But we can play e6, rook d1, rook c8. Rook c8 is good to stop knight c6. And now we intend bishop e7 and short castle. Again, in the long run, I think central pawn is going to count for something. 11 knight c6 is a clever one. Here we play very strong with knight takes d5 intermezzo. If white takes the queen, we take his queen. And after queen e4, a simple knight f6 is possible, but I like the more sophisticated queen c7 move. And after queen d5, we regain the knight with bishop b7. there is this nasty pin, and after bishop f3 we have rook c8, and we'll win back the knight. And so white has to take on b4 instead, and now after knight takes b4, okay, he cannot take, of course, on a8 because of knight c2. And if queen b4, we have a very equal position with both sides having bishops, rooks, and queens. And we have central pawn for queenside pawn, which I believe is a good thing. I recommend finishing development with g6, castle bishop g7, and then you want a castle, bring the rook to b8, a very comfortable position. And that is for queen d3. I believe we covered all the moves. Again, important to just remember the first move, what we do against all of them. So queen e2, we hit him with e5, knight f5, d5. Queen f3 is very good. Is here g6 here is very good against the setup g6, and then just develop knight c6, go through knight c6, and against the move queen d3. Here I propose this move knight b7, and if a4, then we have g6. Again, it's very typical. We wait for white to get rid of the option of castling long. So if you start with g6, white could easily switch to the long castle plans, whereas after knight d7, a4, now long castle, of course, is never a good option with the with pawn a4 being a target, always to this b5 breaking the files open. So against a4 we go g6, and against 7 bishop e2 we go b5. So we don't even allow him to play this this type of positions, which are of course playable, but we just even avoid them. So that is it for the queen moves. Nothing to fear. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next chapter.